Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Ciel DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Sohn Lewis. He has more than 40 plus years in his career. He has reupholstered thousands of pieces of furniture and other items, including antiques, walls, automobile, and boat interiors. One of his most notable projects include upholstering hundreds of replicated seats for the 2000s renovation of Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., and we'll talk a little bit about that today. His work has also appeared in the Smithsonian Institution, a few embassies, and the Maryland Governor's Office, the Senate Chambers, and the State House. He's done work for Joseph Furniture Restoration in Columbia, Johnson Berman in Baltimore, Ibello Upholstery in Baltimore, and Iatesta Studio in Kent Island. He is the lead upholsterer instructor at the Kavanaugh House in Baltimore, and he is training the next generation of upholsterers. I really hope that you enjoy hearing from Sohn today. Sohn, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, glad to do this.
Well, if you could do me a favor and introduce yourself to the listeners and tell me just a little bit about who you are and where you are in the world.
Okay, my name is Sohn Lewis. I've been doing upholstery for 46 years. I'm married. I have 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter, and I have 5 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Presently, I live in Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay.
And I work in Baltimore City at the Kavanaugh House.
Okay. And I had the good pleasure to meet you a few weeks ago at the Kavanaugh House and learn a little bit about what you're doing. One of the reasons I reached out to you is because you're going to be teaching at the Custom Workroom Conference this coming September 2026. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about you and who you are and what you're doing. So you have a very busy life with children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
Yes, I do.
And you've been upholstering for a long time. How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching practically for the better part of the 3 decades.
Okay.
Yeah, for the better part of, I started a couple of upholstery shops and I was teaching there. And I ran a few shops and I had my own.
Okay.
And I always had a teaching thing. I would always get someone that was coming in and I would teach them how to sew and how to cut and do upholstery. So it's kind of like I've been on the same trajectory, for the better part of the 46 years that I've been doing it.
Okay. How did you get started with upholstery?
Okay, so I went out and I got my girlfriend pregnant. I was 19 years old, so I was supposed to go to college, but I started cooking and I was going to culinary arts school.
Okay.
To be a chef, and somehow I ended up working at a furniture company, and they had an apprenticeship program there. It was a 36-month program and 1 year related studies in college, and I pretty much been doing it ever since then.
Okay.
I got my journeyman's license back in 1983, and my first job was in Odenton, Maryland. And the shop that I was working at, they had this gentleman there, and he got sick. So when I got there, they didn't have a lead upholsterer, So,
Okay.
but I always kind of was very mechanical and good with my hands, and I could sew very well. So and I was running the shop then. So that's how.
Was there anyone in your family who did any upholstery or sewing?
No, but my father was a shoe cobbler and my grandfather was a tailor. So I kind of had the sewing thing, in me already.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My father-in-law's, wait a minute. My mother-in-law's father was also a shoemaker.
Okay.
And my father-in-law went into that business after he
Hmm.
married my mother-in-law. And for a while, my father-in-law had a shop, and my husband did work there for a while. He really
Okay.
loved it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't what he wanted to do with his life. And he will
Hmm.
often say now, I wish I had stuck with that because it really was fascinating to him. And he used to make things with his hands, which he loved.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a tailor and shoemaker.
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned working for several different shops. Okay, so you go into
Yes.
this shop and there's no lead
Hmm.
upholsterer. You end up taking over.
Hmm.
What happened after that? You mentioned the teaching
But
was something
okay.
you did frequently, but like how did it start?
Okay, so I had one guy there, and he could sew, but he could sew clothes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I was teaching him how to sew upholstery stuff, deep cushions and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then I had another guy, I was teaching him to do upholstery. I started him out ripping at the shop,
Okay.
and we had a seamstress there. And so I stayed there for about a year. And I met this guy. His name was Larry Creighton, and he had a furniture refinishing business. It was called Kim Clean Furniture Restoration.
Okay.
So uh, he was kind of a mentor to me, and he had a shop here in Lowell, Maryland. And he wanted me to come there, and he was going to rent me a space there. So I moved my shop over there. And what I was planning on doing, because he did a lot of antique furniture. So
Okay.
what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of like start doing antique furniture and kind of like do it in the old way that it was done, spit tacks and hair and all that stuff
Right.
like that. And and that's how I really got into the refinishing because I was always close to that.
Okay.
And yes, and I stayed there for maybe 3 years. And we did a lot of good work there. I did some work for the Greek embassy in Washington, D.C. and
Okay.
different places, and it, everything was just happening so fast. I was meeting some good people that was in the business,
Mhm.
and I was learning a lot at the time. I was always kind of like autistic anyway.
Mhm.
I used to paint and draw, and I was pretty good with my hands.
Okay.
Yes,
So you said you owned your own shop,
yes.
and then what progressed from there?
What progressed from there was I left there. I met this other guy. His name was Joseph Blanchfield, and he wanted to start an upholstery shop because he had a refinishing shop.
Okay.
So I went there and I started an upholstery shop there. And I was teaching a young lady there how to sew, and I had another guy there who's doing upholstery. And again, I was around a lot of antique furniture and wood and stuff like that. And it was at Joseph Blanchfield where and I was doing a whole lot of sales and stuff like that. We were going out hitting the pavement or whatever.
Mhm.
So there was a bid out for anyone to do the restoration of the Ford Theater, Lincoln, where Lincoln got shot at.
Okay.
So we went in, me and this guy, his name was William Goldman, and we did an estimate there. And what they wanted, they was looking for a company that could build these chairs and do them the way they were originally done when Lincoln was there.
Right.
And so we got the bid, and that was that was one of the key moments in my upholstery thing because it was they had a news. I mean, the news people were there and everything and doing
Right.
this, and they had the grand opening, and I was really proud of that. And it was basically just a kind of like a rung back chair, and it
Hmm.
had a pillow on the back that I designed, and then the seat padding, and just with some foam and some cotton and some velvet and gimp around it, and I kind of like I got some notoriety out of that,
Okay.
a lot of that. So, and I stayed there for a while, and it was just like things was just moving really fast, and I was just doing all kinds of things. I was and I had this knack. I wouldn't turn down anything. If somebody brought me anything to sew or reupholster or whatever, I was just game. I would try it.
Hmm.
So yeah. So and I was there for a few years,
Okay.
and yeah, and then and I always kind of like I never worked at any job in Baltimore City. So, and then I left there and I was working a little upholstery shop in Baltimore. And then there was an ad in the paper. They were looking for an upholsterer that can start an upholstery shop. And so I went and did the interview on that. And the guy's name was Steve Wilhite, and he had a drapery company. It's called Wilhite Draperies, and they're still in business. And he, he took me to his building. He had a room there, it was maybe about 1,000 square feet. And he said, I want to turn this into an upholstery shop. And that's what I did. I set it up. We bought sewing machines. I ran the air hoses. I
Mhm.
hired people. I got in touch with different organizations that we was dealing with the reentry program.
Mhm.
Guys coming back, and I was also dealing with the Catholic charities. I had a guy. He was from Poland, and and I had another girl. She was from Jamaica, and I taught her how to sew, whatever. And everything just took off from there. And I started meeting some really good people. And I met a really good friend of mine. His name was Henry Johnson, and he had a design firm called Johnson and Berman. And he was an architect and an engineer, and he was a teacher at MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art. So he
Okay.
kind of like took me under his wing at Will High Draperies. And the other thing that really happened was I bid on a job. It was for the State House in Annapolis,
Okay.
the Senate chambers. And they have these cathedral walls in there that goes up maybe 4 stories. And I went in there and I was like, just going at it. And I put a bid in on it, and we won the bid. And I've never done a wall in my life. So they put all the scaffolding in there and everything. And we ordered hundreds of yards of fabric and everything. And I sewed it. And it was a gold fabric, and it almost had like the Maryland seal on it.
Mhm.
So I sewed that in some of these walls where they were like maybe 18 feet, So I was swinging around the scaffolding with a staple gun and scissors, and and I did it. I did it, and that was a big job and then the governor, they had an affair, for all the contractors that did that, and I mean, that was after that, I just kind of like my confidence just blew up. I just felt
Yeah.
like I could do anything after that, and and that's when I really started doing a whole lot of teaching. Then,
Okay.
I was because I
Well,
started doing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
no, no. I have to ask though. You put a bid in on a job for something you had never done before. Were
never done it
you
before.
were you nervous about getting it?
I well, I I just kind of like when I was at Will High Drapers and I was at the other poultry shops. I kind of like um I started doing pricing on things like that. I found out what the industry was paying most upholsteries and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And at that time we didn't have the internet. You had to go
Right.
to the library or newspaper, find out. And and then I would just like do the math, and I would like figure how long it may take me to do something or whatever. And I
Mhm.
always had this, it's one of the gifts that I have. I can kind of like I could I can look at something and see how long it may take, at this
Okay.
stage right now. So, and um, and we put in a bid, and the bid was like $120,000, which was, that was up, and that was in 1986, and I was like, I'm like 28 years old. I don't know what I'm doing, but I put that bid in, and I priced the foam and the design and picked the fabric and whatever, and we came up with that number. And I I didn't think it would happen, but it did.
Right.
And
Right.
it was I mean, it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
really awesome.
But
And
I'm thinking when you got the bid, here's the good news, you got the bid. Here's the bad news, you got the bid. Now you
yeah,
have to do the job.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing, because it's like, it's like I they put the scaffolding up in the State House, and the other thing was we started the job we started the job right after Christmas,
Hmm.
and we had to be done by February 28th because that was when the Senate was in session.
Okay, I was just about to ask you if there was a deadline.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, it was the deadline, and I got every wall done all the way up to like maybe February the 26th or something like that. And there was one other wall that I needed to put the GIMP on, and
Hmm.
they had took all the scaffolding down.
Oh,
So we rented a bucket, one of those buckets, and
yes.
and
Yes.
I'm in this bucket. I'm like 3 stories high, and I got a glue gun in my hand. I got the give in my hand, and I had to finish that wall off. And yes, and I did it.
You got it done.
I got it done, and I mean that was one of the proudest moments of my life when
I
I
can
did that.
imagine.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Kavanaugh House. And for anyone who's listening, I did
Mhm.
do a podcast with Stacy McAleer about
Yes.
what the Kavanaugh House is about, and it is you are bringing in the word just went out of my head, not interns.
The students, well, we bring in we bring in students. A lot of the students, they're younger people that decided not to go to college or whatever, and we deal with a lot of different programs. We deal with one place is kind of like Helping Up Mission or whatever, where we take people there that that have some difficulties in their life with drugs or whatever, and they're looking
Mhm.
for a second chance. And we also deal with a women's program for some women that been abused and stuff like that,
Right.
and we're taking on a few students from in the reentry program. So we're kind of like it's like we just put it out there, and people know us, and they just go to the website, and we bring them in here, we interview them. When there's a there's a criteria to get into the program.
Right.
So you can't have you, we have an age limit, but I mean that's negotiable,
Hmm.
and uh, and they have to be kind of like going through something. It's like a certain income. You can't
Right.
go above that, and uh, and we take it from there. We try to help them in every way we can with all the resources that we have.
Right. I
Yeah,
know speaking with Stacy, it's especially for some of the people who are in the reentry program, it's not just we're going to give you a job. They need help with other
right,
things. For some of the
exactly.
women, it's childcare. For some
Yes,
people, it's transportation. It's a place to live. It's all of the
yeah,
challenges. And one of the
yeah,
biggest differences with the Kavanaugh House is the students are being paid to be there.
yes,
So the
yes.
criteria, as you said, is different. But
Hmm.
the Kavanaugh House is also operating as an upholstery shop, and it was
Yes,
recently named Baltimore's best upholstery shop.
yes.
So it is a functioning business,
Mhm.
and you're overseeing students who are learning, but you are also producing quality upholstery that's
Yes,
going out the
yes,
door.
yes. We're competing with a lot of the other upholstery shops in the area, and a lot of the upholstery shops in the area. I worked at them. I kind of like worked at most of the upholstery shops in the Baltimore metropolitan area. But let me get back to how I got involved with the Kavanaugh House. I had I had my own shop here back in, I always kind of like had my little shop. It was called Pillow Talk. So I always
Okay.
did pillows, and I was like maybe the number 2 guy in Baltimore that did slip covers.
Okay.
And so I had rotator cuff surgery back in 2010,
Okay.
and I couldn't do a whole lot of pulling. So I decided to just kind of like just open up my little upholstery shop again. And I was basically just doing slip covers and pillows and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And because I couldn't do a whole lot of the pulling then. And then
Okay.
I I I remarried in 2011, and my wife, she was from Arizona, and she moved here, and we decided that we were going to move to Washington State, Seattle,
Hmm.
because it was our daughter there, whatever. So I just kind of sold my shop, and I just up and moved from Maryland all the way to Seattle, and everybody thought I was out of my mind when I did that. and I went. I was there, and I worked for this little upholstery shop where they did Westport yachts, out
Okay.
in Washington State. So I was doing furniture that go in a lot of these yachts and stuff like that. That was pretty interesting. And then I was kind of like I was like an insurance adjuster for Macy's, where
Hmm.
Macy's did furniture, and I would go to people's houses and I would make a decision whether they can get a refund, repair the damage, or with
Right.
mattresses and stuff like that. And that was fun because it was I worked anywhere from my area was like from Olympia, Washington, all the way up to Bellingham. That's almost on the Canadian border.
Okay.
So that whole area of Seattle, and I loved that because I had made my own hours, and that was great.
And something different every day.
Yeah, yeah, and and I got divorced and I moved back. I was planning on moving back here. I was gonna go to Colorado Springs. A friend
Hmm.
of mine told me, said there's good upholstery jobs there. And but there's this company called Ayatesta Studios. They do high-end furniture, and
Hmm.
some people have recommended them, recommended me to them.
Okay.
So and then my kids, they wanted me to come back to Baltimore. So I came back, and I just wanted to take a break for a month or so. And
Hmm.
but this company, they kept bugging me. They heard about me or whatever. And I finally said, oh well, I'm gonna go do an interview with them. And they wanted me to run their upholstery shop there. And that's when I really got into like a lot of teaching because it was on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And it's
Okay.
not a whole lot of upholsterers over there. And a lot of people don't like leaving Baltimore coming across the Bay Bridge, you know.
Okay.
So I moved to Annapolis and I was like 15 minutes from Kent Island. And then I was working there, and a friend of mine that I worked for Arbello Upholstery. That's one of the big upholstery shops in Baltimore. And I was
Hmm.
there for a better part of maybe 22 years off and on.
Okay.
And so he had called me and he was like, he said, there's this lady up in Ricestown. If you interested in doing some volunteer, anything like that, So I wasn't doing anything. And so I went Joe, I got off work one day and went up there and met Stacy, and I just fell in love with the idea of what she was doing with the Kavanaugh House. And then,
Right.
so at that time it was like we had maybe 4 students, and I was teaching them how to make slip covers and pillows and curtains and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And then we got a lot of attention because, through some of the people that I knew, they were asking around about me or whatever. And then we started getting real work, and got a lot of attention, was getting a whole lot of donations and stuff like that. So me and her come up with this brilliant idea that, that we will still do the teaching, but we'll also open up a production shop. And so, and that's what we set out to do. And everybody said it was a crazy idea, but then me and her, we just came around Baltimore. So we're looking for a space we can do this thing. And we went to one place and then it wasn't right. And then we, I don't know how we got in touch with these people where we're at now, but came here, looked over the place or whatever, and the rent was good, whatever, and so me and her, we said, yep. And the board, they wasn't happy about it, but she wanted to do it. She's very strong-willed, so we did it. And we got a lot of, we bought some sewing machines and bought some cutting tables, and we just set this thing up. And at the time, we weren't paying the students, and you know, and it was kind of a little rough starting off. And then at the particular time, it was my first time working for a nonprofit, and it was kind of touch and go with that, because
A different
I
experience. Yeah.
yeah, and then I was still at Iatesta, and they had this big pull on me, and so I got this started with her, and I was here for about a year, and it was right around COVID time, and and I had got sick, and I was in the hospital for a while, and then I kind of like I resigned from here, and I went back to Aya Tester, and I was there for like 5 years, and then I always kind of like was kept my finger in what was going on with the Kavanaugh house, and then
Hmm.
it's a year and a half ago. Uh, a friend of mine said, you know what, you should call Stacy up, see how she's doing. So I called up, and and I knew the person that was kind of like trying to fill my shoes, whatever. Wasn't doing a great job of it, and then had this other person here. So she had a job, and she asked me uh, would I do it for because she was in a bind, So
Right.
I came up on it was like on a Monday. She called me. She said, "I'm really in a bind. I got to get this thing done, this booth done, or whatever." And I said, "So when do you need it?" So this was like on a Tuesday. She said, "I need it Thursday."
Oh
So,
my.
so I was like, wow, So I came over and I took a day off work and I came here and I did it. And then you know, she uh she's very persuasive, and she know how
Yes.
to get on the best side of me. So she said, I want you to go upstairs in the warehouse on the eighth floor. I want to show you something. And I said, you want to show me? So she took me upstairs and it's a big building and this whole thing up here, whatever. She had it all laid out and she said, she said, I have this event coming up March the 15th. Now, mind you, this is the end of January, and she said, I'm committed to do this. It's like we're gonna lay out this thing like a whole house, living room, dining room, playroom, everything with all this
Right.
furniture. And I had like three students, that would they knew a little bit of upholstery, whatever, and she had all these ideas, doing all this furniture and all this stuff. So I was like, Stacey, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
And this
And
this was going to be a fundraiser for the Kavanaugh House.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I did it. I came in and I got the students and we did all the work or whatever. And then, I kept telling her, I was like, Stacy, I was like, she just kept adding on things, all kinds of stuff, designs or whatever, and I mean, she was just, she knows me. She was picking my brains, and
Hmm.
she was like, I was like, Stacey, I don't think I'm going to get all this stuff done, but I got, I think I got 95% of everything done. And, and the event turned out really good. And I was so tired. It was a 4 day event. I didn't go to like the first 3 days because I just wanted to go home. I wanted to get out of here. And I showed up the last day and we did it. And then
Yeah.
things really blew up then. And then at that particular time, I hadn't made a commitment to be back here,
Hmm.
so she kept bugging me with that, whatever. And I just decided and I went home and I talked to my wife and I said, you know what? I said, me and her started this thing. I said, I would like to kind of like, finish what I started. And, and since then, March the 15th, I mean, the whole, the whole thing just blew up, it just kind of blew up. We started getting all kinds of people were interested in the program, and money was coming in and we was getting a lot of furniture and stuff like that. And a lot of things are getting done and we're just moving. I mean, it's moving really fast now. And I'm very happy about it. Teaching is hard, but, somehow I managed to kind of like, right now we have 12 students. We just added four more last week.
Oh,
So
wow.
So I'm kind of, what I do is I, I kind of, I kind of pay attention to the students, the ones that are, where they're at, and, who could do what, and
Hmm.
stuff like that, who needs more attention. And so, and, and I still do upholstery work. I do a
Okay.
whole lot of stuff like that because some stuff have a degree of difficulty with it. And, but I didn't just kind of like, I mean, I do what I'm good at. I just bounce around off each student. If this one's sewing something, or this one's cutting something, or this one's, doing something. and people actually say, how do you just bounce from this and that, and I say, well, I've been doing this for so long, and a lot of the stuff just comes easy to me, but I
Right.
try to teach the students the basic ways of doing everything, no shortcuts, just do it the way that, that everybody is on the same page. And
Right.
it works like that, and right now I have one young lady. I taught her upholstery and sewing at I Attester, and I got her here. So she's kind of like my assistant. And then
Okay.
I have another young lady. She's good on some things, so she's my assistant. So, I kind of like, and in a way, some of the students are good at some things, and I have, they help with the new students and stuff
Right.
like that. So it's an ongoing thing. Yeah.
Sean, what are some of the challenges of teaching people how to do things, but also trying to produce work of value that has
Mhm.
it has the Kavanaugh House name on it, which is your name at
Yeah.
this point. So, and Stacy has said that when people call and they think they're getting the average upholstery shop, and
Mhm.
they find out the mission of the Kavanaugh House, they're like, oh, okay, I can wait however long it takes. But the quality still has to be top
Yes.
notch.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges of being patient and teaching new people this trade, but also saying that's not how that's going out of this building?
Yes, I have to, it's like because I deal with a whole lot of different personalities, and some of the students are, everybody have their issues, and
Right.
it's a new day because a lot, it's just the internet now. So it's just this new generation. So what I try to stress to the students is, when they're working on a project, it's all about the details. I mean,
Hmm.
it's those small things, those small things, and I use all kind of analogies, it's like, you know, um, I think the biggest challenge with a lot of the students is kind of like I run into the problem where a lot of them with the measuring and stuff like that, because everything is about measuring and this stuff right here,
Right.
So, and I temper it with a little patience, and and I I'm really good at kind of like looking at a student and seeing where they're at. So like we have this new person here, and Stacy, she brought him into the program, and I was like, when he was saying he had all these years experience or whatever, and I told her, I said, Stacy, I said the proof is in the pudding. I said the way this thing goes with an upholsterer or with anybody that's a builder and anything, whatever, they can say they can do all this and do all that, whatever. The way I just being in charge and having my own shop, a guy come in and say, I got 25 years experience. I say, okay, I'm just, I say, can you sew? Whatever. So I'm just gonna give him the roll of fabric, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna give him a chair, and I'm gonna say, do your thing on it. And I'm not gonna help him.
Right.
And I just let him go. And then, and it all shows up there. It all
Right.
shows up there and I take it from there, and it's like it's an evaluation, and I try, and I mean, as you know, it's like when you work with a whole lot of designers and stuff like that over the years, it's like you have to have a thick skin. I mean,
Right.
I've worked with some of the best designers in the world, and and you do something and you think you did your best to it, and and they could just pick it apart. Now if you're not tough, it's like, and you can't handle that, this is the wrong business to be in.
Right.
And
Right.
I tell the students, I was like, you know what? I was like, you're learning this, so I don't expect them to get it right the first time. I want them to, I kind of like build off the mistakes that people make, because it's
Hmm.
all about solving the problem. It's all about
Right.
troubleshooting. It's like with the sewing. I'll tell you, they'll call me, say, "Oh, Mr. Sean, this machine isn't working." I said, and I teach them how to troubleshoot. You know, I said, make sure the thread is going every which way or whatever, and your
Right.
needles in straight or whatever. And then if it's something else than that right there, then we can go towards that. So my biggest thing is critical thinking.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing for me, critical thinking. They'll ask me, I have a student, he's doing something, a pattern, and he lays it out or whatever, so I'm already watching. So they'll say to me, say, is this okay? And I'll ask them, is it okay? What do you think?
Okay.
I want to know what you think because, and be honest with yourself. If it's something you don't like or something that's not right, whatever, what, I'm gonna critic that right there. And then, I have to be kind of like, I got to be kind and I have to be firm,
Mhm.
because this is real work,
Right.
and I put some of the students on stuff that, some donated furniture that we have around here that they can play with or whatever. But when I put them on real work, I let them know right away, that this is real work and I'm
Hmm.
gonna walk you through this, because, it has to be done right. And like
Hmm.
I said, I kind of like I can pick certain students, that can do certain things,
Right.
that I could depend on that they're going to pay attention to the details, but it really is a challenge because, just getting some of these people, they never sewed on a machine, and this new generation, I mean, I've had students that don't even know how to use scissors. And so, or most just basic tools. That is the challenge. That
Yes.
that is the big challenge. I kid you not. And because I grew up in the 60s and 70s or whatever, and when I was going to school, it's like we had electronic shop. You had different shops. You know how to
Right.
use tool, and then I grew up in the inner city. We used to make wagons. We used to build pigeon coops. We used to make our own bikes. It's like
Right. Right.
we did all these things, and this generation of young people, most of them haven't done that. So. I have to, when they come into the program, I have to do a little class of what this tool is for and what this tool is for,
Wow. I had not thought about that.
and you have to be really patient with that because, it's like I tell Stacy sometimes, and sometimes I'll forget that this person may not have done that. I may get them moving on something like that, and then they get a tool and they don't know what to do with it,
Right. Right.
and it's a real thing, and sometimes sometimes it breaks my heart, when I see some of these young people, I mean, they're in their late 20s that don't know how to use basic tools or drill or anything like
Right.
that. And but I have to be, I have to be kind with that. I have to be kind and patient with that, and that's kind of like for me, that's one of the hardest things for me, that to see this, and having to go through that. But I try to find the potential and I try to find the strong point in the student, you know,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that's what I try to do,
Okay.
because some are good at, little details with fabrics, and or some are good at doing certain things, sewing or whatever. So I try to find their strengths. But it's like I tell Stacy all the time, it's like everybody can't do this. You can't teach a person, you can't teach a person, to be an artist or a craftsman. You can't teach
Right.
that.
Okay.
I can show you how to use a drill. I can show you how to do this, whatever. But I can't teach you to have an eye for something that's right.
Right.
You can't teach that, and but we give everybody a chance. We give everybody a chance and to be in a program. Whatever. We don't like to kick anybody out of the program. It's usually kind of just, we'll sit down and talk with them, and I could see sometimes with some students where they're like losing interest in the program. And
Hmm.
we have to address that, because like I
Right.
said, you know, we, we're also running a production shop, and I have to be mindful of that. So I'm wearing two different hats,
Yes, you are. I
and
hadn't thought about it that way, but you are.
yeah, yeah, and and sometimes I have to be firm and and I have to be kind, but at the same time, I try to let them know that this is what this is,
Right.
now, it's a different thing, because most upholstery shops, and I worked in many of them, they don't have the time to teach a person how to do this.
Right.
And and in the upholstery industry right now, because it's kind of like falling apart,
Hmm.
by the wayside, because it's like a lot of these shops, for instance, it's like you have a labor price on a sofa, and if you're paying a person say $20 an hour or something like that, and you have a basic sofa, you're paying this person, like $160 a day or $200 a day or whatever, and you're only getting like 1,200 labor on a sofa. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have to kind of like, you have to kind of like weigh the difference of how you're going to do this. And this is why a lot of this upholstery shops now, they don't pay the benefits. They don't do this and that. And they have people on piecework and stuff
Right.
like that. And
Right.
so I try to get people in the mindset of, being aware of the time that you're on it. I
Right.
mean, I worked at David Evans. I worked at different places, whatever. And what they do is, when, even at I test, I would do a prototype, and then I would do the piece of furniture, just taking my time and see how long it would take. And then I would do it, with all my experience, and do it right or whatever. And we would come up with a time. And on a lot of these, bigger shops, they have a piece of furniture, and they have a number on it. They say this particular piece of furniture right here should take 10 hours, you know.
Okay.
And if it's not making that, over a period of time, they're losing money. And if this person is not up to that, they let people go, you know.
Right.
And that's why
Right.
you have a lot of upholstery shops now. They don't offer any benefits. You come in, it's like the guy that's right next to us, he just pays people piecework,
You're just the
you know.
contractor. That's it.
You're just a contractor,
Yeah.
because I mean, he can't afford, if he's only getting $900 for a lounge chair, and you're taking like 3 days to do it, he just he can't make it like that.
Right.
And and when I was, you know, years ago with some of the older upholsterers around, they understood this. They
Right.
understood this. And I worked for Arbella Upholstery, and I worked piecework. And at my greatest point, I mean, I could do a sofa in a day. That was
Wow.
my claim to fame.
Okay.
I would come in there and I would do a sofa, a three-seat, three-back cushion sofa with a skirt. I would do that in 10 hours. And that was my goal. Get in there,
Okay.
get it done in the day or whatever. And that allowed me to move from shop to shop. I would work, 10, 12 hours a day,
Mm.
weekend, because I knew how long something would take me to do it.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's how some of the older gentlemen, back in the day, that's how they were doing it. But now you have people, and that's why, it's like I have to be mindful of that here, because if I have a student on a real job and we're getting this and that, I have to step in. Is at some point in time I have to step in and I have to like finish this thing off, because we
Right.
can't we can't we can't hold it any longer. But
Right.
what Stacy is doing now, we have like, I think we have maybe 50% of the students now are sponsored. They have a sponsor, maybe
Okay.
from 30 to $35,000 a year, which is
Okay.
about $15 an hour. So that helps a lot, because if
Okay.
we just depend on the furniture that we send out of here, we just wouldn't be able to make it.
Okay.
We wouldn't be able to make it. And so what we're trying to do is, we're getting to a point where we're trying to get accreditation and whatever, and that will allow us, I could hire some people that have the experience to get the stuff done, and at the same time, hiring these people, they could be mentors to some of the students, you
Right.
know. But so that's the challenge also,
Okay.
you know, and and I'm giving them a crash course, because when I was in the apprenticeship program, what we did was you had to have so many hours springing up furniture. You had so many hours of building the frame. You had so many hours of sewing, so many hours of cutting, and so many hours of tearing down or whatever, and that's what it took, to do that. So I'm
Right.
giving them a crash course in everything. And then the other thing is there's a difference between upholstery and reupholstery. A lot of the shops, they doing reupholstery. They're just taking old fabric off and putting new fabric on. I'm
Right.
teaching them, we're taking stuff all the way down to the frame. I'm
Right.
teaching them how to web it, how to spring it, how to pad it. And, they're just getting everything, all at once. We're just trying to, cram it all in there.
Right.
And
Right.
that's why the program is running like 2 years, like that. So we're just trying to cram it in like that.
Right.
But we have some students they just want to sew. So that's great. And then we get some of them that, they just want to do upholstery, but they need to learn how to sew
Right.
also. And then my career of doing this, I, wo- I've done just about everything. I've done draperies, I've done Roman shades, I've done boats, I've done just about everything. And that allow us when we get people who call in. I have experience in just about everything that meet people's needs, whether it's draperies, Roman shades, or slip covers, or building an ottoman, making a headboard, anything like that. So that's what we bring in. Pretty much don't turn down anything,
So
you
you can
know.
say yes to everything.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and that's what I bring to the table,
Okay.
and that's what keeps me going.
The sponsors of the So Much More podcast allow me to bring guests to you each week. And without them, I couldn't do it. I'm pleased as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library that I can use the library to help sponsor the podcast as well. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. Education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to members of the Window Covering Association of America. The WCAA is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. The library is a gold level sponsor of the WCAA. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. Discover Klimaka Studios, where innovation meets exceptional design. Klimaka fabric and wallpaper collections are inspired by the original works of collaborating artists and developed with the understanding of how fabrics are manipulated into exquisite soft home furnishings. Workroom businesses enjoy exclusive access to engineered designs and best trade pricing. From clever layouts to classic linen prints, Klimaka Studios delivers the quality and consistency that your business demands. And Klimaka's reliable, on-time delivery keeps your projects running smoothly. Go to klimakastudios.com for swatches and trade account information. Klimaka Studios, for the joy and profit of workrooms. Sean, have you ever thought about quitting?
No, no, no. I tell you, I've had some health issues over the years, and where I thought that I couldn't work anymore. I had AFib, and I had a episode way back in 2015, and and I was in the hospital for a while, and I just
Mhm.
thought, oh man, I'm done, and I don't know, I got better. I had rotator cuff surgery on both of my shoulders.
That is not, and that my husband
Yeah,
has had that. That is not
yeah,
easy surgery to recover from.
and I was down for 7 months. 7 months the first one, and then I was down another 4 months on the second one.
Mhm.
And then it was just a couple of years ago. Me and my wife, we were just home and on a Sunday, and I was cooking, and my sister bought me this pressure cooker, and I had never used it. And so I was cooking. I had some like kale or something in it, and I I went to kind of like adjust the pressure, the steam,
Mhm.
and it blew up on me,
Oh
and
my
it
goodness.
it burned 20% of my upper body, my arms, my abdomen, and I
Oh,
was in the
mm.
hospital. I was in Hopkins Bayview, the burn center, and I just that was 2 years ago. I didn't think I was going to come back from that. I
Okay.
was Yeah, that knocked me down. So I was ready to kind of like just retire,
Hmm.
call it a day. But they have this new skin graft thing, whatever, and and they took care of me, and I got better, and you know,
And here you are
so
back at work again.
yeah, yeah, I've been knocked down like 3 or 4 times, and my thing is I just get back up and I keep going. And a friend of mine actually said, "Are you going to ever retire?" I was like, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's because it's something I could always do, and I don't push myself, I don't
Okay.
push myself, at all, because I don't, it's not worth it, if it's something that I don't want to really do or whatever, I'm mindful that I'm older, and I'm not going to be lifting anything or heavy or
Okay.
anything like that, but I still do a lot of upholstery, you
Okay.
know. I mean, that comes easy, and like I said, I I got a couple of people here, I could use, I could teach them, I could show them how to do things, cut
Right.
wood, measure, and stuff like that. So, so the program is really, it's really a helpful thing to me, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Sean, I always like to ask my guests, what is your definition of success?
Wow. Oh, gosh. Let's see. Um, I don't know. I guess this just being just my service being wanted when people like call me, and you know, uh, I'm successful, and as though that I'm able to assist other people in this field. It's like
Mhm.
a friend of mine, Maurice. I mean, he'll call me about pricing, yardage, and stuff like that, and people always asking my advice, and and I feel, success about that because I'm still doing it. I mean, uh, I just met this person, a friend of mine, and I mean, and she's a designer. And she's she lived in Savannah, Georgia, and and she'd heard about me, and we could sit and we could talk about fabric, we could talk about wood, we could talk about antiques, and she's going to open up a little shop again or whatever, and she wanted to use some of my services and all my, the advice that I give. So that's
Mhm.
that's my thing to success. When I'm not, I feel like when I'm not wanted, then I'm not going to be successful.
Okay.
It's like uh it makes me stronger. It's like with Stacy, I mean, I, me and her, I do most of the pricing. I do
Mhm.
most of the yardage and stuff like that. And I'm good at, it's like, especially now, because most people send pictures of the stuff they want, and I
Yes.
send me the measurements. I find out the fabric they want, and I usually can tell you how many yards it'll need and stuff like that. So I'm really good at that right there.
Okay.
And and it works really good. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm about 95% right on most of it. We very seldom have to buy more fabric or whatever. I
Okay.
make it work because I map out everything and I teach the students this. It's like, I don't care. Measure 10 times before you cut it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I teach them the way or whatever. It's like we're not doing any shortcuts. Like they'll take you know it's like I had the girl the other day. She was doing some boat cushions, and she didn't. She forgot about the angle. She used the pattern from the bottom of the cushion or whatever, and it was all wrong.
Oh.
I mean, and I was able to kind of like salvage that,
Mhm.
and I told her, I was like, it's like, whenever you get a project like that, I was like, don't assume anything.
Right.
Don't assume anything. And I teach the students measure from the frame. Don't, measure, it's the same way. If I was going to get a suit made, I was like, I don't want this person to measure the suit that I have on. I want you to
Right.
take measurements of me because,
Correct.
you'll run into problems if you do that. And so, yeah.
So that leads me to my next question, and that is you are teaching, but you have also run your own shop and had
Mhm.
enormous projects to do. What happens when you make a mistake or when one of the students makes a mistake? How do you handle that?
Well, one thing I try not to do is because a lot of the students are very sensitive when they
Mhm.
make a mistake like that. And so we we treat it with kindness. I don't fly off the handle or anything like that. When I make a mistake like that, I just with the upholstery thing is always there's a solution just
Yeah.
to just about everything. It's just like when I got the guys, they're taking down furniture all the way down to the wood and joints are loose and stuff like that. So we find out where the stress points are. What can we strengthen? What can we salvage?
Mhm.
What can we replace? Whatever. I just believe there's always a solution to whatever problem there is when it comes to furniture. I don't write anything off. You know,
Okay.
I can, I said, you know, just get a saw, get a drill, get some dowels or whatever. We'll fudge it together if we can, try to
Okay.
salvage it. But I treat it with kindness with the students when they do make a mistake. But one of the things that I teach them, and I'm big on that, I say, when some of the students that are cutting fabric, I say, cut like you don't have enough
Ah,
and
okay.
map out your plan. It's like, I'm big on writing pads. I'm always jotting down, making pictures and stuff like that. So I'll show them how to measure a piece of furniture. And then the average width of most fabric is 54 inches wide.
Mhm.
And so, I, draw out the plan. I say, you know what? You mark off your bigger pieces first. I don't have them cut anything. They tape it off with blue tape, painter's tape, before they cut
Mhm.
anything. And then we double check it, then we go over it. And so, and it's better to cut something too big than too small because you can't make small big, but you can make
No, you
big
cannot.
small.
Not with fabric, you can't.
you know, so my thing is like, if you're unsure of how, I say cut it too big
Yeah,
because we could always adjust that.
right.
And so, but a lot of the students, get some of them, they get gung ho and they'll be on something or whatever, and they'll make a bad cut. And so, you know, when it's a bad cut, something that we can't fix, and whatever, sometimes we just have to order more fabric,
Yeah.
but that's far and few between. But that's one of the things I'm big on, you know.
Okay. You mentioned writing things down with pad and paper. Do you use much
Mhm.
technology at Kavanaugh House?
I'm that drives Stacy crazy with that one. I'm old school. I write everything down. It's like
Okay.
listen, my son works cybersecurity. He's in the Coast Guard. So I mean he knows this IT stuff. So when I get stuck on something like that, I will call him.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of like I don't like to get spoiled by some of the technology and stuff like that. I'm good at math, so I'm always doing that. I read blueprints and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Uh, and I think the best technology that I have is like, I with the students. So what I say, take a picture of that piece of furniture. Just take a picture of everything.
Right.
I say use the camera on your phone. Take a
Right.
picture of that. Because if some days if I'm not here, I'll say take a picture of it, send me the picture, whatever. And then I could kind of like give you an idea of what we need to do here. So,
Okay.
but yeah, and usually it's like when I was doing my bio for that thing or whatever, I like to write things down, because and I was proven right with that because Stacy was doing a grant last week or whatever, and she forgot to save everything and then she erased everything.
Oh
And I
no.
told her, I was like, see, I said that's why. I said, when I'm doing something like that, because look, here's my sheet. I printed this out and I write, these are all the stuff that I'm answering your questions right here. I write everything down. She gets on me because she said, I have notebooks all over the place around here where I'm sketching a picture, I'm writing something or whatever, and it's like, and I have my briefcase and I was like, oh my gosh. And sometimes I confuse myself because I lose things, you know. So,
There are
but I
benefits to either way, right?
yeah, but I'm learning to kind of like, kind of like putting my appointments in my phone or whatever to remind
Okay.
me of stuff like that. But I'm big on the calendar and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm kind of a
Okay.
visual person.
Sean, are you a reader? Do you read any business books or anything like that? I always
Uh,
ask my guests about
yeah,
that.
I read a lot of the architectural digests and stuff
Hmm.
like that. I go through that architectural digest. I'm always looking at different furniture and stuff like that. Um, I am a big reader, but not in a whole lot of. I It was a time that I really got into antiques and I was going to a lot of estate sales.
Hmm.
It's like if you're gonna get into one of these auctions or collecting antiques or whatever, he said you should pick something and stick with that. Don't try to be all over the place. Don't try to do Duncan Pipes or Chippendale or Sheraton or whatever.
Right.
So my biggest thing that I loved was lamps and lampshades,
Okay.
like a Cafe di Monte lamp, a Tiffany lamp, or something like that. And I love lamps, and I would go to thrift stores, and because I've done a few lampshades, with the
Okay.
silk. So, and I read a lot of stuff on antiques and stuff
Okay.
like that now,
Okay. I'm just
but
always, I love to read, so I'm always fascinated by what other people like to read.
oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm a big reader. I
Okay.
I have a lot of books. I'm a
Okay.
history buff. I'm a history
Okay.
buff, especially with I'm a big history buff, especially
Okay.
with Baltimore. It's like Baltimore. I was like, I like the neighborhoods. Baltimore is just like full of all these different neighborhoods, different ethnics and stuff like that.
Right.
And
Philadelphia is like that. Yeah.
yeah, and I've been to Philadelphia, and then I kind of like been through all the little streets or whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm a big history buff. I'm big on that. So,
Okay.
and I have a lot of books on that right there. But I'm always wherever I go at, I'm always, and I tell the students this. I was like, when they're doing something, whatever, and it's like, look, right, and I asked them, I said, do you ever go into, you go into somebody's house? When I go into someone's house, I'm looking at the furniture, I'm looking at the
Right.
draperies, I'm
Right.
looking. I'm looking at everything, I mean, that's what I'm into, so I'm always paying attention to that.
Okay.
And and I try to keep up with the different types of fabrics that's coming out. And
Hmm.
I do is a Japanese is I think it's on PBS, but it's a Japanese channel, whatever. And I like some of the sewing machines, some of these techniques, some of these machines that do all this fancy stuff where you have like 50 needles in there doing all these different colors and stuff like that. So I'm fascinated with that.
Right. I'm going to have to look for that. I'm not familiar with that. I'm going to have to
Yeah,
look. That sounds neat.
it's the Nikkei is like Japan's PBS type thing.
Right.
And they have a thing on there about textiles, and then they have stuff on food and stuff like that.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm always fascinated by that right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what three business items could you not live without in your day-to-day life?
My scissors, my tape measure, and an ink pen.
Okay. I figured that was going to come up.
Yeah, I no, I have to have that. And it's like I tell people, I was like, when I go to the bank, I go to different places, like I tell people I'm a pen thief, you know. It's like I find myself, if I go somewhere and somebody give me a pen to write down, and I find myself out and walked away with this person's pen. So, and
I will keep that in mind.
I'm a crackerjack artist, so I do acrylic painting.
Mhm.
I haven't done anything, for a few years, and I was crackerjack photographer. So those are my hobbies, things that I like doing.
Okay. What do you do extremely well, Sean?
And the furniture,
In anything.
um, I have the patience of Job. I'm a good listener. I'm a good listener, and I'm a good listener, and
Okay.
I'm I'm generous to a fault. Um, I believe in I cherish friends, and stuff like that. Especially as I've gotten older,
Hmm.
start your friends start going away and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
the friends that I have, I cherish, and I'm very helpful with them, and I love my kids, and I just uh, my mother. I come from a big family. My mother had 9 children, and
I'm one of nine.
yeah, and I am the exact middle child. I have two sisters older than me, two sisters younger than me, two brothers older than me, two brothers young. I'm right in the middle.
You are
But I,
exactly the middle.
yes, and I was raised by my grandmother because
Okay.
my father was the only child. I have different fathers than my other sisters, so I was raised and was raised in the church, and my grandmother, she was generous to a fault. She
Okay.
was always helping somebody in the neighborhood and dragging somebody's kids to church, and I would have to watch them. So I was always kind of like, put in a position that I'm in charge. I'm the oldest, or
Okay.
whatever, and I have 4 sisters still alive and 2 brothers. So I'm always they look up to me, when they, going through something, they call me.
Mhm.
So I'm a real good brother, and
That's a nice thing to be.
yeah,
Having five brothers myself, that's a nice thing
yeah,
to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you not do so well, Sean?
Um, tell people my feelings sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes I tend to kind of like, you know, um, I, I keep things to myself sometimes, you know.
Okay.
Um, so I'm really bad at that. But I'm getting better with that, sharing, and it's like, dealing with all these different students and dealing with Stacy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've I I have to remind myself, in certain situations that, I don't take things personal,
Right.
and I take a step back, and I will, if something's bothering me or something I need to talk about or whatever, I don't react right to it. I try not to. I'm not
Mhm.
perfect, but I try not to. I try to like think about it, whatever, And there's one
Right.
thing that I learned, and 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 because I write a lot, I write my thoughts down about something that's maybe bothering me, and then I'll read
Okay.
it over, and I was like, and I kind of look at it, I say, oh, no, I don't need to say that, so
Okay.
so
I think that's brilliant because I
yeah,
work very hard on responding
yeah,
instead of reacting myself.
yeah,
And that's a
yeah,
great way to do that.
yeah, and and sometimes the technology can get you in trouble with that, because some maybe bothering you, send a text to somebody, and then and after you send it, you think about it, because I've had people that have done that. I had a really good friend of mine, uh, and she was a seamstress of mine. She was very good, and she was going through something or whatever, and she wrote this email, expressing herself, and I told her, I was like, you need to read that. I said, you need to sleep on that, and she sent it anyway, and it was the wrong thing to do, and it
Yeah.
made her lose her job. And so I tell people, I was like, I said, just learn to take a step back in
Yeah.
certain situations. And um, I, I, I always try to be the better person. I will apologize, because a lot of the students, they're sensitive, and most of my students are women. So I have to, temper that with
Mhm.
kindness and understanding. And, so I'm still learning, and a lot of times I have no problem, because sometimes I could have days where everybody, it's like, I was like, everybody is like needy on a certain day.
Mhm.
Non-needy people, nobody's getting anything right, and I'm like, and I'll say, you know what, I'm going to take me a walk, and then I'll come back. I said, because yeah, so I've learned, as I've gotten older, I learned to take a step back, and
Okay.
I mean, and I've always, because I work with different people, and all through my 46 years, I've done estimates, and I go to people's homes and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and I'm very good at that. I'm
Okay.
very good at that. You know, so
Sean, what about you would surprise people?
that I'm 67 years old.
Well, when you said you had, first of all, yes, I am shocked. But when you said you had great grandchildren, I thought, holy
Yes, yeah,
cow.
I have four great grandchildren, girls, all girls.
Okay.
Yeah, um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well, you could definitely convince people you were a lot younger than 67. That is for sure.
yeah. I don't believe it sometimes. I have my aches and pains, whatever, but I I keep moving, and because I have a lot of friends that are younger than me, that aren't doing half of what I do.
Right.
I mean, a lot of, it's like, and people actually say, when are you going to retire? I was like, why? Why would I? I love what I do.
Yeah,
I love being around
exactly.
people. I
Right.
love being around people. I love inspiring people.
Love
I,
that.
I I just love it. I love sharing what I do. My knowledge about people. It was a time, some of the older upholsterers, back in the day, they didn't want to teach you anything of their skill. They would keep it
Right.
to themselves. They was always in this fear. I'm not going to teach you, and you're going to take my job. I don't have that fear.
Okay.
I don't have that fear. You know, I'm I'm more than willing to give what God has given me, this gifts. I'm
Okay.
more than willing to share. So
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, what do you like least about this business?
Um, hmm, the thing I don't like about this business is a lot of these people that own a lot of these shops, they don't treat people right. Um, In
Okay.
my 46 years, I was just fortunate enough to always be in a managerial position or a business owner position. So I was able to, negotiate for myself. And I tell people now, it's like there's no unions for a poster, so you have to advocate for yourself.
Right.
And I found that a lot of these shops, I mean, they're just some of them are just greedy, and they don't really care about the people that work for them. And
Okay.
and that's the one thing that me and Stacy we're trying to change that, So
Right.
and that's why we're doing a production shop or whatever, We want to have a place that some of these students they could stay here and they can earn a living, and
Okay.
still work here. Now, we get, you know, all kinds of people call us, looking for a seamstress or something like that. And I give that student this, it's their choice. If I think you can sew and they're asking me about, this shop or whatever, and I was like, it's your choice, but just keep this in mind. You have to do good better. It's like because the obstacles ahead of you is that you have to advocacy for yourself
Hmm.
because and you have to sit down and negotiate with this person. But I said it's better to go in there being overqualified than being underqualified. You
Okay.
know, so that's the part of with this business. It's like they don't want to treat people right, and
Yeah,
that's the sad part about it. Yeah.
I've seen changes over the years, but there's still a
Mhm.
long way to go.
Yeah, it's still a long way to go. I mean, it's like North Carolina is like was a major capital for a lot of upholsterers and stuff like that. And a lot of those guys that work there, some of my family's from South Carolina, and they worked at some of these furniture places, and it was like I had
Right.
one cousin. I was like, he worked at some furniture, famous furniture. He worked there for 35 years, and all he did was arms. So I was like, and I said, that's all you did. And I was like, and then the plant closed down and he couldn't get a job. I said, because I said, that's all you did was arms.
He had one skill. He was taught one
Yeah, that
skill.
one
Yeah.
skill. And I just tell people you just have to be, just be ambitious, go out there, take a chance. It's like that's what I've always done. I I wanted to learn how to make bimini covers and do boat seats or whatever. I went and got a job at this place called Skelly Sales, and the girl said, "You're very overqualified for this job." I said, "I just want to learn how to do this."
Right.
And I worked there for a while, and then I left, and then I worked at another place that did auto upholstery. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, I just took a chance.
Okay.
And that's what I teach my kids. I said, if you're going to be good at something, just be better than everybody else. Try to be. It's like you don't have to be arrogant about it, but just do good better. You know?
I like that. Do good better.
Yeah.
So, since you revealed how old you are, I hesitate to ask this question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years, Sean?
Um, maybe just I would really like to, I would really like to get the Kavanaugh House to a point where they really are doing good. They have
Right.
some good instructors here, whatever. And what I would like to do is, I'm so grateful, for doing this conference, come September, because that's something that I would love to do. I would love to just, like talk about, upholstery and this industry and how it is. I mean, because I've made a very good living off of it.
Hmm.
I made a good living off of this. I mean, yeah, it was hard work, but
Yeah.
I don't regret it. I don't. I mean, I studied it for 4 years before I got my journals. Like that was like a bachelor's degree.
Right.
But
Right.
so yeah, it's been good to me. So I teach people that. It's a good business if if you're artistically inclined and you want to do this because you could just do this on the side,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
So, Sean, tell us about what you're teaching at the Custom Workroom Conference.
I'm gonna be talking about uh the show wood. Okay, so
Yeah.
over the years, I think this was a long time ago. I was working at Arbello Upholstery, and you know, I told myself I'd make slip covers, and then so I bought a lot to this company that I was working at. I bought the slip covers there. I was just doing everything, and so I noticed that a lot of the furniture that was coming into a lot of the upholstery shops, they were just doing the furniture, whatever. They wasn't doing anything with the wood.
Right.
So a friend of mine that I was telling you about, Henry Johnson or whatever, told me under this. He said, you could do this right here. He said, this is added money. It's called buff and fluff. So that's what I do. So I'm gonna teach the buff and fluff or whatever, because most shops, they're not equipped to do a full refinishing on the shop, whatever.
Right. Right.
So you take a little, you know, get yourself some fine steel wool, some touch-up markers, some polish, whatever, and you can make that wood look good. That's on that
And
piece
it
of
makes
furniture.
such, that's a thing that makes such a huge difference.
Yes, and the thing that when I was in Seattle, because Seattle they are very strict on a whole lot of safeties and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
you couldn't use no aerosol spray cans if you're working around cotton and stuff like that. You just couldn't. They was big on that. They would give you a fine.
Okay.
So had to find a way that you can do this buff and fluff, because a lot of the stuff that you can use to buff this furniture up, it doesn't have a whole lot of bad smell. You know.
Okay.
So you could use some of this stuff and you could clean it up, and and at the same time, it's like say for instance, like a wing chair, and it has ball and claw wood on it. It's just an added, maybe take you less than an hour, and you could
Okay.
charge like maybe $100 just to do those touch-up legs. And you can be a person that you get good at this, and you could just go around different shops, just touching up the wood, have your little touch-up kit,
Buff
and
and fluff. I love that.
buff and fluff. That's it.
I love it.
So I'm going to talk about that and teach
Okay.
how to do that, and talk about the things you need to get that going like that, and it's good for your shop, because like where we're at right here, because of it doesn't have a very good exhaust thing. I mean, if you spray a can of lacquer in here, I mean it just
Everybody
the
can smell
smell
it.
is just everywhere,
Yeah.
and a lot of the stuff is not healthy to be smelling it like that. You need
Correct.
proper ventilation with that. So the buff and fluff, I mean, you could just take the chair out back, your
Mhm.
shop or whatever, and do it like that. And it's something that you could. I've done. I've done it in people's homes where people have called me up or whatever, and they have scratches on their furniture, whatever. That was one thing I did with Macy's.
Mhm.
I had my little kit, and that's what we would do, and it saved them money. And you can make money, and it's really good, and it worked. I've been doing it. I've been doing it for over 35 years.
Love that.
So
I
and
love
so
that.
and I teach the students that, because a lot of people is like a lot of shops or whatever, they'll just do the furniture, put new fabric on it, and send it back to the person. It's all scuffed up, scratched up, or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's just
And that makes a huge difference in how
it
something
makes a
yeah.
big difference. Makes a
Yeah.
big difference, and yeah. So
Okay.
that's what I'm going to be teaching and
All right,
and talking
great.
about. Yeah.
Well, Sean, this
Yep.
has been an absolute pleasure for me. I have one last question, and that is,
Yes.
what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about getting into upholstery or trying to decide if this is something for them?
Well, it's long hours, it's hard work, you know, and and yeah, I mean, and if you have some artistic ability with you or whatever, I mean, it's a great thing. It's but there's long hours, because when I had my shop, I mean, I would, because I always had something to do, and
Mhm.
it was a lot of 10, 12-hour days, some days 6 days a week, and but the reward is really good, because I mean, doing this right here, a lot of people work, a lot of different jobs, technical jobs or whatever. But a lot of people don't work a job where they can kind of like create something and
Yeah.
see it and complete it. It's
Yeah.
like people go, you work for a law firm, you go in there and you're the secretary or whatever. There's no completion in what you're doing. you know.
That's
With
so
this right
true.
here, yeah, with this right here, it's like just to take a piece of furniture and just take it all the way down to nothing, and build it back up and then finish it. I used to tell a lot of the shops or whatever, I said, sometimes if you don't want to get people right, I said, one thing you can give people is like, go tell them, say you did a great job on that right there, because that means a lot. That
It
means a
does.
whole lot, to
It
people,
does.
and that motivates people. So the
Agree.
reward is great, and then with that right there. And that's what keeps me going because to get a student in here, whatever, and then after 3 months, and they're sewing and they're doing this and doing that, because they'll come in and say, I can't do this. I said, yes, you can. It's like this, if you can see it, you can do it.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well,
Hmm.
thank you for that, Sean. And I look forward to meeting you in September.
Yes,
Well, I saw you
yes,
a couple weeks ago, but I'll see you
yeah,
in
yeah,
September.
yeah. I
All
look
right.
forward to it.
Thank
Yes.
you, Sean.
Okay. All right. Bye bye.
I really hope that you enjoyed hearing from Sean today. I'm excited to see what he's teaching at the Custom Workroom Conference. But more importantly, I'm so impressed by how much time he has already spent training and teaching people in our industry and how it's still so important to him and how many times he mentioned how important kindness is. I've seen the Kavanaugh House and I've been there when he's been teaching, and you do have all different personalities and people with different stories, different reasons for being there, and to know that he is so conscious of that and so aware of it, I really cannot wait to see what else he accomplishes and what else the Kavanaugh House accomplishes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.